I know we have an exciting session planned for you guys today. This is going to be a little bit different than you guys are used to. I know you guys just came out of a lot of sessions where it was the PowerPoints and you got to see the actual presentations. This one's a little different. We're doing this more of a question and answer type of format. I did post the questions in the actual in the link, so you'll be able to see these questions that we're going to ask. I was going to tell you that Sean and Christina had no idea that these questions were going to be asked to them, but so you guys can print them out. You can follow along with them, so you can take your notes as you guys hear some things that I know Sean and Christina are going to share with you guys that will be beneficial. So with that, I will start with introductions. Again, you guys are stuck with me again. My name is Gary Flores. I'm a program manager here with EdJoin. We also have with us our HR Division Director for San Joaquin County Office of Education, Christina Torres Peters. And we have also coordinator in our HR department, Sean Chavez. Those of you guys who have been to the conference, especially even last year, you guys had the opportunity, the pleasure to see both Christina and Sean present their sessions live. We're really bummed that we didn't get to do it this year, but like I said, I think we have a wonderful, wonderful presentation that you guys will all benefit from at least hearing, right? So with that, we will go ahead and get started. The title of this is HR process kind of the new normal, right? This last year we've had to really had to get through some difficult times and trying to figure out what in the world is going on, right? How are we supposed to still function? Because I think that's the one thing, and I think I said it earlier on in my first presentation, but the human resource department didn't have the luxury to try to figure out how to shut down, right? You all had to figure out on the fly, really on the fly, you had to figure out what in the world are we going to do? And some of the things that we're going to kind of talk about are going to, hopefully give you guys and allow you guys to walk away with some additional tips, tricks, things that have worked here at SJCOE, and not just at SJCOE. We'll talk a little bit about Christina's involvement directly with Pasco as well. So starting off, what I want to kind of do, and this question will be really directed more towards Christina. Christina, we all know that really everything kind of starts from the top, right? So can you tell us a little bit about, during this whole pandemic, the leadership that you got from even as high as our superintendent to our deputy superintendents to any of your peers? Can you just give us a little background of kind of what that has done to help shape what you've done here in HR?
Absolutely. So first of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to our session, and we're really glad that you could join us in this digital format or virtual format. So to answer Gary's question, I think he's pretty much said it all. The leadership started from the top, specifically here at SJCOE, as it always does. We have a very prominent, strong leader in our superintendent, James Musolimus, and our associate superintendent, Troy Brown, and on down the line through our entire cabinet and all of our division directors who, not just during a time of pandemic, but any time, they are responsive and understanding of whatever our needs are. And I think in this time of uncertainty and in some cases fear, I mean, there's just so many emotions and so many things going on at any given time, but they made sure to communicate with us a clear plan of execution and what we needed to do. And even when we didn't know what to do, we had that listening ear and that sense of somebody who was going to help you figure it out. And that's what we needed at this time, because like Gary said, our department was not one that was able to shut down. And even when the majority were working remote, we were here, payroll was here, IT was here in the building. So, and business services as well. So we really had to figure out a lot in a really quick amount of time, as all of you did. And so to try to decipher, these new things and how to create new things and manifest new things was a challenge for everybody. But when you have strong leadership who helps you on that path, that made it just so much easier. And in addition, just the leadership at SJCU in general with all of our department heads. We had to work so closely with IT for equipment and remote capabilities, and CodeStat, who's helped. I'll get into that a little bit later about all the help they offered to us, but just so many departments that we had to collaborate with on a different level. And when you have solid leadership in that way, it really does make that experience all that it needs to be, because you can't do it alone. So we were just super grateful for that leadership that really helped us get through it, and to the current day, while we're still, trying to manifest and figure things out as we go. But that was very key for all of us here at SJCOE.
Good. Well, and that's great. And I think I can speak for everybody at SJCOE in particular, but all of us other employees of the school, of the school system, that we really appreciate the payroll department coming in. No. John, why don't you kind of, and I know this is going to throw Sean for a loop, but should be okay. Sean, can you kind of now take it to the leadership level that you had when it was now brought, because we got to hear from Christina, and Christina had to have that direct interaction with the superintendents and the deputy superintendents, but give us a little bit idea of how that trickled down to you in the office and what you guys were able to provide.
So after the direction came down from the superintendent and the associate superintendent, Troy Brown, Christina kind of gathered us together, all of our management team. We have a great management team, and sat down and just started brainstorming on what we need to do here in HR. Number one, to keep our staff safe. Number two, to keep the public safe when we were ready to reopen, which we were closed, and we opened to the public on June 15th. So kind of just, we all had our assignments on what we needed to do. And then we met with the girls, our HR techs, and did a couple trial runs on kind of the process, because at that time we were only opening credentials and fingerprinting. We opened credentials and fingerprinting Monday, Wednesday, Friday by appointment only. So kind of our credentials team, everything is by appointment only. So they use, I think it's Microsoft. I can't think right now. I can't think of what they're exactly using, but it's a system where people can go online and make their own appointment in their segments. And we did the same thing with fingerprinting, kind of connected with our folks in our operations staff to let them know who's coming into the building, who needs to be in the building. Our operations department did a great job with signage, making sure that when people did come in the building, they knew that they had to be masked, right. They had to wash their hands, kind of all that stuff. But it really started once it came from Jamie and Troy and Cabinet down to Christina, then to the management, the HR management team, and then it trickled down to our HR techs. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, sure.
It's a group effort, team effort.
Yes.
So Christina, we always talk about this little, and I say little, but this group that we call PASCO. Mm-hmm. This just for a little bit of a background. I know we have some. I can see you guys here. Some of you guys have been seasoned. You've been here. You've been to the conference. You've heard us talk. But I do see some names that I don't recognize. And maybe if you can, Christina, what in the world is PASCO?
Okay, PASCO. So PASSCO, and the acronym stands for Personnel Administrative Services Steering Committee. And that is actually a branch of the CASESA, which is the California County Superintendent's Educational Services Association. Can you say that? Repeat all that, Gary?
Say that, yeah, I can say that 3 times real fast. And just Christina, if I can, really quick, CASESA actually they actually own EdJoin. We operate EdJoin for them. So this is a PASCO is a branch of that, and I'll let Christina get into it. But
okay, so PASCO is a branch, like I said, of CASESA, and essentially it is a compilation of the heads of HR and personnel from the 58 counties in California. So quarterly, we meet usually in person, but of course that has also ceased during the pandemic period. But I want to say a special shout out to Mari Minjares and the chair and all of the executive staff there. who ensured that through this pandemic period when we're all struggling, that we had kind of that guidance and peace of mind, because you knew you weren't, sometimes you feel like you're crazy and you're the only one, but we learned quickly that we were not. So to be able to brainstorm, usually, like I said, it's quarterly meetings. We've been having just random meetings too on regular occurrences, depending on what the topic is, because there are many of us struggling and probably bombarding with the same questions. So I applaud them for making sure that we are up to date and that we're receiving that information, and really that we just have somewhere to go with these questions, because essentially, every county office, HR is responsible for those 14, in our case, 14 school districts that report to us. And in your cases, wherever you may be, that county office is that filter and that sort of head of that area to be able to kind of integrate and bring all of that information back and provide that to their constituents. And we regularly do that as well with our own districts. And we've been trying in that way to just relay information and get training to them virtually. But clearly it's not the same experience, but
Right.
that team of people has been crucial. And I know my personal, ability to get things done here at San Joaquin County because of that guidance and that structure. And you're getting to hear what other people are doing and templates, and the sharing and the wealth of information there has just been extremely helpful to us. And of course, that's information I can filter to other departments, whether it's payroll or business services or whomever, because we do have that, direct connection to that different information that we might not get elsewhere. So we really are appreciative of that effort through PASCO.
So Christina, during the meetings, and I know I've actually had the privilege of going and presenting at PASCO and being a part of those, and it's usually pretty fun meetings. We're usually talking about the exciting things that are happening. There's, the lawyers are there and they're talking about just, nothing too serious, right? It is serious in the sense that if the lawyer's up there talking, it's probably something that you need to listen to. But the feel and the meeting types are a little bit laid back, not necessarily something that is always an important thing. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about the conversations that kind of go on at PASCO pre-pandemic, and then what's changed to the post-pandemic conversations? What's been the biggest change in those conversations?
Okay. Well, pre-pandemic, we meet quarterly. And aside from that, we have a listserv of all the 58 counties. So we're sharing information constantly. And it can be as simple as, hey, does somebody have, this job description on our listserv, those kinds of things? And has anybody dealt with this situation with the union, what have you? Topics like that are just kind of day to day. The trainings and the information we share is usually legal updates and just informational changes. We have presenters like Gary come through, and we have usually one of the days is allotted to training from one of the law firms that they contract with to provide topics like sexual harassment and investigative training, all those kinds of tools that we need on a regular basis. So that's kind of the standard norm. But after March, mid-March, the topics turned into emergency leave and the Family First Coronavirus Act leaves, and how do we bring people back to work, and what PPE is required, and how are we going to bargain with our unions during this tumultuous time, and just 100 topics that none of us knew what to do with, quite honestly. So it changed from just kind of the day-to-day standard of HR and the topics that we deal with every day to this whole slew of topics that I don't think in our lifetime any of us thought we'd ever be addressing. So, and on top of that, just kind of a big thing for all of us was kind of the mental health of ourselves and the mental health of our staff and the people around us, all of our employees who, in many cases, if they were, temporary employees who lost work, and people just in really dire situations. And we had to kind of be the sounding board, but also be able to help, in just this unprecedented time. And so it was a very big shift in topic, but it was nice to know we had that cohort of people we could count on to help us through that.
Well, it really did on our end really seem like a seamless process. So you guys did a great job of again, like we said, that leading from the top. PASCO kind of did that for all of us here. I kind of want to switch gears a little bit, and then Christina, we're going to come back because you mentioned a couple of things that I think everyone here may have had that same question or concern. Excuse me. Uh, excuse me, Sean. This question is directed to you because I know there were things that came down from cabinet, right? And that kind of change had to, threw a little wrench in the day-to-day operations at the office. What kind of things did you have to do to help coordinate the, again, like you said, you guys just opened up to the public back on, I believe, June 15th.
June 15th.
What did you have to coordinate and who did you have to coordinate with? What kinds of departments did you have to coordinate with? I'm assuming that everyone still was working remotely. So tell us a little bit about what you had to do and what changed for you in that side.
You're right. We opened back up to the public on June 15th, and a big shout out to our IT department and our Deputy Superintendent for Business Services, because all of us were working remotely, and we just had phones, or we had old Chromebooks. We didn't have anything that mirrored our desktop. So number one, they made sure that we all in HR, there's 20 of us spread out between this building and then our satellite sites. And so they gave us computers, all-in-ones that mirrored our desktop, so we could actually see all of our documents and didn't have to come into the office other than the 2 days that most of us were scheduled. So that, number one, working with our IT department. Number two, working with operations to make sure we had all of the PPE that we needed. They installed plexiglass around almost all of the buildings now, I believe, have plexiglass on the front counters. And that, they were on it. We got it really, really quickly. And I know there was like a shortage of the plexiglass, so we were worried that maybe we wouldn't get it right away, but our operations staff were on it. Again, I said the signage. And we did a few trial runs, kind of seeing what the flow of people would be like through the building. Fingerprinting, we scheduled them about every 30 minutes so that our fingerprint tech would have time to sanitize, where they sit out, where they sit in the lobby, and then sanitizing her desk, and it's a lot. Let's see, I'm trying to think of who else we had to coordinate with. I think that was about it as far as coordination, with operations, IT, and I was going to mention from earlier that Credentials was using Microsoft Bookings. So they were booking their appointments through using that platform. And then fingerprinting, our girl she calls and schedules those appointments and makes sure that they're every 30 minutes. Some of the things that changed for us is, used to be we'd get people coming in for fingerprinting at Credentials, and then, they don't have a babysitter, so they come in, 3 or 4 of them at a time with their kids or what have you. So we had to kind of make sure that they knew that they had to come in by themselves. They had to have an appointment. Obviously, we did have people that kind of would show up and come inside the building, and we're really big on customer service. So we made sure that we were able to accommodate them, and
right.
We never want to turn anybody away. We always were in communication through our listserv with our. We have a San Joaquin listserv with all of our districts. So any new fingerprinting locations that would open up prior to us opening, we would share out. Any new things that were coming down the pipeline, we'd share out on the listserv.
Can I jump in on one thing,
sure,
Sean?
absolutely.
Another important forum that we had was the COVID task force that was established by our associate superintendent. And that was comprised of several key department heads and our comprehensive health, who was in direct communication with public health. And it wasn't just a matter of anything, just kind of we did whatever we wanted to do. We had to submit in a formal way a request to be able to open, to be able to anything that we needed to do that would bring people in or that was just different outside of our department. We had to make that request through them, and that would be assessed thoroughly to make sure that we had everything that we needed in play. In this case, it was the plexiglass, it was the hand sanitizer and the wipes and all of those things that were in such short supply at that time. So again, all of those key department heads who just did whatever they had to do to ensure that we were able to continue services here for our own county office, but for all of our districts. But that task force really did take it upon themselves to ensure that every request was looked at and that it was the appropriate decision whether it was to reopen or not reopen or what have you. So we appreciate, their assistance in making sure we always had what we needed.
Right. Yeah, that was again, we haven't been here in so long, and we come in and there's plexiglass all over the place. So it was a sight. So I kind of want to switch gears, Christina, a little bit and talk about something that you had mentioned earlier, just a few minutes ago, in reference to the bargaining process. I know this is probably a tricky area, a difficult area to kind of navigate. Who's coming in, who's still working, who's still getting paid, how do we coordinate the hours for the teachers or even the classified staff? Can you tell us and talk to us you don't have to get into specifics, but can you just give us an idea of kind of that process and how things changed and how you had to quickly adapt?
Yes. So as you can imagine, as soon as this all hit, it happened in March, but we had to already be thinking about what was going to happen in August, because before we, blinked, it was August. So we had to immediately shift into gear of that bargaining, put our bargaining hats on in a time that we typically wouldn't have been bargaining. But we then had to, of course, start to meet virtually with our unions. And luckily, both of our CSEA and our CTA units here are just wonderful to work with, and we're lucky in that way because we already had those established relationships, and they were as anxious as us to get to the table to kind of deal with these critical topics. So again, normally you're dealing with salary and benefits and kind of standard day topics, but now once again we were dealing with unprecedented just different topics that again we had to figure out together how to maneuver. So it was things like, again, leaves, what were those going to look like and how were we going to grant those? How was it going to look when they got back into the classroom, and the PPE and the social distancing, and what's the protocol when people now report out ill? And, just so many things that, but I think the first thing was that it had to be respectful, because we had to ensure and impart that our first priority was the safety and the well-being of our students first, and our staff and anybody who was going to be part of this process. So I think because we've had that piece established, and we just worked to ensure that they understood and knew that that was our priority, that it really did make a difference. And although it was still scary to open schools and bring kids back and do all of these things, that collaborative effort on both parts just made it such a good experience, because we had to be able to do that in a time of just such uncertainty and fear and everything else, and just be respectful of all those things. Another hot topic was just the whole thing about when people don't have childcare or their kids aren't back in school, maybe they're required to come back to work. What are they going to do? Helping maneuver all of those things. And again, I have to say it again, just that whole mental health component for those people who were just really struggling in different ways. So just a lot of heavy topics, and it was difficult, but rewarding now that we see that we are taking those steps, every day to kind of get back to some kind of normal. We're not nearly there, but every day is just kind of one more step forward. But we couldn't do it without, the cooperation of our bargaining units. But to do that virtually was different. I've been bargaining for 20 years and I've never had to do it online, but that even worked, because it was everybody's, end goal was to make sure that we had an agreement that was, that everybody could live with. And fortunately we're there. We still are in bargaining with one of our units, but we're hopeful that, we're going to be able to come to a good resolution soon.
Good. Well, thank you, Christina. That actually it's a great segue into the next question. I know your HR is usually the place where you have a question about the job description, like you said earlier. I have a question about, hey, I want to get a promotion, or what's going on here, what's going on there, and it all has to do with work. But you guys kind of had to put on a different hat during this time. Can you tell us a little bit about how you had to, not necessarily just in your office, but really everyone's first thing is, oh, just go to HR, just ask HR, right? So you guys kind of have to have the questions for everything, and this kind of goes for everyone, right? You all have to be able to answer everyone's questions, and I know that might be difficult, but can you give us an idea of how and what happened and what you did here at SJCOE to help, build the morale and kind of, in those tough situations where you did have to deal with, people who were not going to be retained and didn't have the opportunity to continue to work. Do you and Sean just share with us a little bit about what you guys did here?
Okay, well, I think it's kind of twofold again, because it starts again from the top and from our leadership, who made sure that we knew, once again, what was happening, what the plan was, what was public health saying. And that wasn't just information they kept to themselves. They made sure that all of us knew what was going on. And in a public way, they put information out, and really strong communications out to our employees. And through our telephonic messaging, we were able to get message out to maybe people who don't have emails. So I think we went above and beyond to make sure that everybody knew what was going on. And for those people who were most affected, we just did the best that we could on our website, thanks to our PIOs and to all of the staff who put a COVID website essentially together with just a million resources. I mean, if anybody wants to go look, it's just, our SJCOE website is amazing in that regard. And there was one section just allotted to employee resources. And at this time, so we could refer them to the EDD to file for unemployment. We could, even if they didn't have insurance and they didn't have access to counseling service or mental health services, we were able to, find some servicing that would help them, even if they didn't have coverage, because that was the case in a lot of scenarios. So we just had to go above and beyond in that way, not just us, but all departments, to find those resources and information that would help everybody navigate just through this crazy time. So I think on our end, just as with anyone, when you know what's going on, you feel better, you feel safer, you feel like you're armed, because at least as information is coming through, what's happening. And so that was very helpful to all of us, because we never felt like we were in the dark. And I think that's huge in this kind of situation. Secondly, just internally, still to this day, here we are, 8 months later, I have not seen my whole team all together. And that's been a real struggle for us, because we're a super tight team. And we do the best we can, that we meet virtually as an entire team. So all 20 of us are on there, on Zoom. We have opportunities where we talk about what's gone on in your life, the good things, and share about your graduation or your child's wedding or your grandbaby was born, whatever it may be, because that's what we do as a family. And we still wanted to keep all those components and share all those things that are still important, whether we see each other or not. We found ways to virtually say thanks to our staff. We try to do it on a regular basis when we're all together, but since we can't do that, we've found virtual ways to do that through sending, thank you videos and, kind of leaving stuff here for them on their desk for the days that they do come in, and those kinds of things, because we've asked of them so much. And in particular to my own team, I have to say, this was a group that I could ask and say, we got to figure out how we're going to do this. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we have to figure it out. So to have that grouping of people just say, okay, what do we need to do? Or let me research. Or it was never, and I'm exaggerating, never a scenario where somebody said, well, I don't know how to do that, or I can't do that. It was always, okay, let us check with this person, or let us figure out, and we figured it out. And that extends to our whole SJCOE family, who did the same. Every department you could count on. And I hope, in kind, we were able to do the same, because we were all flying the plane or building the plane as we were trying to get in the plane, and it wasn't even built yet. So, but I think anybody out there who's been navigating this has gone through the same thing. But when you have a solid team who you can trust and who trust you, it just makes all the difference. So those are kind of some of the internal things. And Sean, if you want to elaborate.
No, I think you hit it right on. We're a very close-knit group, like Christina said, and we miss each other. And there are lots of times when we'd be here, we'd do potlucks. And now, like she said, we only get to see people, sometimes you don't see the same people when you're here every day. So there are lots of us that just stop in on days when you're really not scheduled here, with the excuse of you got to pick something up or missing a file, just so that we can see those, because we miss each other. And one of the things that we did that I thought was kind of neat was right after we kind of were on lockdown, we did a virtual paint night with all of our HR staff. And it was just a lot of fun. We did it on a weekend during the day, and it was just one of those bonding things. And I think it made us all feel connected. It made us feel, safe and cared about. And I think that trickles down from the top here at SJCOE with the messages that we're constantly receiving from, our deputy superintendent, our superintendent, on, very transparent with what's going on here, which I think is very nice. It makes us all feel safe and cared for.
And one last thing that we also do is we've incorporated into, like we would if we were here, we always do a team building kind of thing. So we've just incorporated some fun stuff during our virtual staff meetings. So it still allows us to do breakout groups and just share with that little group that you maybe haven't talked to in a while. So we just try to find creative ways to stay encouraged and to encourage each other.
Good. So let's now take another little shift in a kind of a different direction, because I know this is, of course, an EdJoin conference a little bit. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit into the EdJoin side of things, because I know again, HR doesn't stop. It couldn't stop. So we pulled some numbers, and Sean and I, we kind of discussed a little bit about what these numbers were. Based on the numbers of postings, Sean, and maybe you can give us an idea, what have things slowed down? Have things started to pick back up? Have you started to see an intake in applicants? And maybe even talk a little bit about what you guys had to do to kind of continue the hiring process.
So with your help, we looked at some of the data. We had 7 certificated postings with about 350 applications and about 68 classified postings that netted us about 650 applications. The positions that we normally get lots of applicants for, say more entry-level positions, very, very low numbers compared to what we had seen in the past. People were just afraid. We weren't even sure that we were going to be able to even, when IA instructional assistants going to be going back into the classroom. That's usually our biggest hire of that particular of the season. So we weren't sure what that was even going to look like. In March to September of 2019, we hired about 285 people, and the same period this year we hired 98. So that's quite a big difference. And our pools are starting to pick back up. I was happy to see that we have some candidates for a school nurse. We've been trying to fill that position for a while, and we have some good candidates. So I'm hopeful.
So if anybody out there knows a school nurse candidate.
Yeah. But instructional assistants, that pool, it was right in the beginning when we were starting to come back and in talks of coming back to class. We were getting, bigger and bigger pools, and now, we might get 8 or 9. It's not back to where I'd like to see it. Same thing with fingerprinting. I mean, we're down, but we're starting to get back to being busy. But again, we're only open 3 days a week, so that makes a difference. Some of the things that we've done, we had to keep going, so we started doing virtual interviews. Our girls had to figure out how to use Teams or Zoom and schedule. I mean, for instructional assistants, we might have 12 or 15 candidates that we're seeing in a day. So they figured it out really quick. And like Christina said, not one of them said, I don't want to do this. I don't know how to do it. They were all like, okay, we're on board. What do we need to do? Right. And we've not stopped. We've continued to hire. I mean, you saw the numbers, we're getting back up there.
Right.
We've done seniority draws for our instructional assistants on Zoom and Teams, or Zoom, right, Christina? Right. I think it's
yes,
Zoom that you guys use. Chet, our attorney, he's here on Wednesdays. He does sexual harassment training. He does frisk training. We're figuring it out, and we just keep on moving.
So
forward.
if I can just jump in on my personal experience was, I want to say the week after the pandemic, I had a series of management level interviews, and it was difficult. It was trying because we were still in that place of trying to figure it out, and the candidates so I called Gary and I said, Gary, I need your help. I said, how can we do this where we don't have all this paper, where we is there any way we can get a mobile something, I don't know, anything to just kind of help, because we knew this was going to be our norm for a while. I expected, as they do, I'm going to reach out and they're going to figure out something. What I didn't expect was in, I don't know, a few days, Gary said, I want you to check something out. And he called me and he showed me what was going on with the interview app. And I about fell out of my chair because it was such a quick response. And it was just so exciting to see, how it changed everything in our world. And I know if you didn't go to the session earlier today, all I can say, anybody out there who uses EdJoin, it is a must-have, especially, I think, for any time, but especially at this time. So thank you, Gary, to you and your team again for coming through and really making sure that that was something that we needed and we got right away. So we appreciate that.
Thank you for that, Christina. And I think that's a shout out to more of the team. I think it's something that we here at EdJoin, we really try to take pride in, and making sure that we're here to serve you all. We want to make sure that, I always say it in all of our sessions, that our job is to make your job easier. And something like turning the interview app into something that's available on the mobile phones was really a no-brainer for us, because it was something that we did see that it would be something of help. So if those of you who are not using the interview system within EdJoin, give them give the help desk a call. Guys, it's free for everyone, so it's not an additional cost. This is just something that you already have access to. You can create your interviews. You can do everything that you need to do in an interview, answer questions, everything on it. So that's a shameless plug for our interview system.
Yes, but it's a needed plug, because I think so many of you out there who are kind of struggling through that, or you have people who are saying, well, I can't, and people think they're not going to be able to figure it out, but it is so easy on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad, whatever you have. So I'm sure the team will fully support if you all are looking to onboard with that. So
right.
Can I add one thing on that? So yeah. One of the challenges was that if you're doing the interview on Zoom or Teams and you're using your laptop for the actual interview, you don't have access to look at the applications of the people that you're interviewing. And so that's where I felt that it really came in handy, because we had administrators that were at home. They only had their laptop, and they didn't have, we weren't printing out applications or any of that. So what they did was they would use their phone or another device, the iPad, and they'd be able to look at the interview and look at the applications and use it that way. So that was really, really helpful. And that's how I found most folks that, most administrators that I was working with how they used it. It was really, really nice. So thank you.
Getting into how you used EdJoin, what are some of the things that you guys did that maybe that you weren't doing before in EdJoin, or that you said, okay, hey, we need to start taking a better look at, are we utilizing EdJoin to its fullest capacity? Because I know there's a lot of things, and we've talked that there's a lot of things still in EdJoin.
You're gonna go there, aren't you? Are you gonna go there?
I told them that I'm going to try to stump them at some point here. But there are things within EdJoin that maybe you didn't use before, that you at least said, hey, we need to stop and we need to take a look and take stock in what in the world is available to us in EdJoin, and are we using it? Have you guys had those kind of conversations? And just tell us a little bit about, what has changed there.
Okay. So one of the things that comes to mind is pre-screening. We talked about it before, HR pre-screening, before we sent it to the departments. And it was really beneficial during this time, because we knew how busy departments were. They were working remotely, and to send them, 50 applicants and making them look through everything just didn't seem like,
Right.
We didn't need to add that more stress to that. So that was one of the things that we started really doing well, I think, was pre-screening the applicants so that only the qualified applicants would go forward to those department managers. And, you know, it's always been there. We've been kind of laxy-daisy about doing it, but we really use that feature a lot. And applicant tracking, I think the new, I know you get mixed reviews on the new and the old applicant tracking, but I found that it was much easier to use because especially only having one screen at home, you know, at work,
Right.
I have dual screens so I can go back and forth and open things, but being at home and with one screen, it was much easier to screen applicants with the new applicant tracking because everything is right there, just scrolling up and down. So
So for those of you who are not, maybe not familiar with the screening process, you are able to upload questions and go through and actually screen an applicant right on EdJoin. So you do not have to have a separate sheet of paper, take that separate sheet of paper after it's done. John is laughing because it just happened. Then you take that separate sheet of paper, you put it in the employee's file, and then that employee's file goes over to a big warehouse full of stuff from 1984. So
74.
74. So so what we are trying to do, and we have this whole thing of going paperless. We really encourage you to take advantage of it because everyone, this is free. This is not an additional service that we are asking you to pay for. This is I feel like an infomercial. This is one of those things that's already included in your subscription. So you're able to upload any of the pre-screening questions. Pre-screening a lot of the applicants it saves time. It really saves time. You know, Sean and I have had many conversations on the pre-screening process. And then Sean, you had mentioned the applicant tracking system. I'm gonna keep saying it. I know Richard said it in his session, and I said it in my session this morning. For those of you who are hanging on to the old applicant tracking, January 1, well, you know, around that time, that link is going to be gone. And it's going to be gone for multiple reasons, but we really encourage you to really start getting familiar with the new applicant tracking. We did talk a little bit about the interview system. Again, it is something that is free and it's available. You can upload your questions. You can upload your question sets. You can create a ratings sheet. You know, you can rate them from 1 to 10, 1 to 100, however you choose to use it. This is yours. And I think that's the one thing that we really think is a benefit to you. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is the new hire orientation. Sean and Christina, and I know the question that's going to come up from it. I'm waiting in the QA, but tell us a little bit about how you guys utilize the new hire orientation and was it helpful for you during this time?
Sean, why don't you go ahead?
Oh, so you know, that was a challenge when we were, you know, like April, I want to say maybe even March, April, we still were hiring some folks. And so at that time, excuse me, we were mailing them the packets and then they would come and drop them off to us. And she's my neighbor next door here, Deanna Moreno, our compliance coordinator. She has wanted this since when she first came to HR, an e-signature or, you know, like electronic forms, goes paperless. So I guess it became, I'm not sure how the conversation happened, but we realized we had to move forward into this new technology world. So she worked with our IT department in helping kind of pilot the it's called Sign Now program, and it's a lot of work for her at the time because she was creating all of these different little scenarios, a permanent employee, a temp employee. I mean, we have a lot of ways we hire folks. It was a lot of work in addition to her normal job, which is her CalPads world. But she took it on and she did a great job. And not only are we using it for all of our new hires, but we're using it for attendance. All of our attendance is now on that. all of our contracts for all of our management contracts. I even believe teacher contracts were done that way. Our cell phone bills. I mean, all of the departments have now gone on board and are all using it in some way or another. But our compliance coordinator here at HR, Deanna, she really, really worked tirelessly to get that going, and has kind of trained a couple of our girls to also be able to, get that going. And, like I said, nobody said no. Nobody said, I'm not going to do it. Nobody said it's too hard. Everybody was like, how can we get on board? And it's all, we send it through, our regular new hire packet through EdJoin. And then this is another workflow that comes through. And so far, knock on wood, we've been successful. We're hiring. We hired, like I said, 98, almost 100 people. That's only perms. That's not including all of the subs and temps that we hire. We only started recently tracking them, but so we're getting it done. And they do the new hire online. Christina Kozik, our HR tech, as well as some of the others do temps. But she also has to coordinate with payroll and attendance. So not only does she do her piece, but payroll and attendance hop on and they do another piece of that too. So, and so far, I mean, the challenges are, not everybody has the ability to upload documents or to share screen. I mean, some of them are students and they're learning the tech world too. So there've been some challenges, or they're at the park or they're in their car and they want to do their new hire. So we've had a few challenges, but for the most part, I think we've done a really good job. And if anybody out there needs any of the forms or any contacts or anything like that, the email confirmations we send out, any documents that we've talked about or processes, we'd be glad to share them or chat with you on the phone or what have you. So, but yeah, big shout out to our compliance coordinator and our IT department for getting that off the ground. That was a challenge.
Yes, for sure. That was just huge. And I think my first day of work when I started here, I think that when Deanna and I talked, I think that's what she said she was striving for. And so for our department though, it's just been, it just changed everything. And somebody asked me the other day, now that you've had all these innovations and things different, how's it going to look like whenever we get back to normal? What's that going to look like? Are you going to keep a lot of these things? Are you going to go back to the old school? But it's kind of hard now to think about going back. I mean, to the way that we, in so many ways, because now that we've, moved forward in such directions and things that I think we dreamed about or aspired to do at some point when we had time, it's here now. And so it's nice to know that a lot of these things I hope will continue for a long time to come. And just the way that we're doing things has made us a lot more efficient, even though we're not always physically here and those kinds of things. So so it's been just a nice time to be in the middle of that innovation. And the last thing that I want to say with regard to that is through all of these, things that we've had to figure out together as a county office and just as a department, that is our motto. And I think if you've been to some of the other sessions today, you heard it a few times, but the educate, the innovate, and the inspire. And I have not seen that us live that more than right now. So I think it all goes, ties back into all of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. So we are, sadly, we are down to our last 4 minutes. I do see a couple questions in here. There's a couple of really good questions that we will address in the next kind of Q&A question session. And that's going to be a session where you guys can ask anything and everything from any questions you've had throughout the day. So, but the one thing, there's one from Juanita Contreras. Are we able to use the interview system on a Microsoft Surface? Your district does not use Chromebooks. We use Surface. So, Juanita, the short answer is no. This is an app, so it has to be something that you can download from the App Store. I will say this, that on the, I do know on the Macs, they are going to start opening up the App Store for you to download some of the apps through there. So if the Mac allows you to download or pull anything off of the Play Store or the iOS Store, you can get the interview app there. It is, again, because the Chromebooks they do allow the Play Store from there, then you can get it that way. So sorry, that's just not something that we have set up for that. The other question, and I see that good old Deanna answered it. I have to say, happy early birthday, Deanna. We share the same birthday. The sign now, and I knew that was going to kind of come up. And I mentioned it earlier on in our first session. We are working with. We did announce we have a e-sign with SACE and also with SST. We are working on trying to figure out how we can incorporate that into EdJoin, and that's one thing that hopefully Christina's not too bad at me, but we'll kind of discuss that with Pasco to see if there are some standard forms that we can already upload to the system that will allow you to sign, because I think that's the challenge that we've had there. So we are actively working on trying to get some type of way for you to sign through EdJoin, through all of the new hire. And what we're talking about is a new hire orientation. So I think, Becky, your question regarding the best way for a site administrator to learn about the interview app and how to use it, we'll address that in the next session because we're going to get cut off here. So thank you everyone for joining us for this session.
Thank you.
We'll see you in about 10 minutes in our Q&A.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.